Hi, Megan.
Hi, how are you, Carrie Ann?
Good. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
For everybody who's listening or potentially watching, this is Megan Wessels from Powerful Partners. And we're here in Chicago, and we are sitting at Evolve Her, an amazing female co-working space where I work, and I think you work here sometimes too.
I do.
So
yeah,
it's a
great place.
Appropriate place to be. And I'm just so excited to have you as my guest today. It's been fun to get to know you in such a short period of time.
I know.
But I guess that's sort of how the world is, right?
Yeah.
In small business, you meet, you get introduced to other, especially for women, and you find someone and you hit it off and you hang out.
The next thing you know, you're doing work together.
Right? It's great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump in and start to ask you some questions about your business, but I wondered if you wanted to just start by I haven't even really heard, I think, your whole story about how you got started. So we've talked about it a little bit, I know, but so maybe like the 10,000 foot overview of how you got to the place of owning your own company.
Thank you. Yeah. Wow, there is a pretty long story. But I'm trying to do it much shorter. Long story short, I was working for my father's business. I decided to leave. I was in sales for 11 years for his manufacturing company. Decided to leave. I was also running the Chicago chapter for the National Association of Professional Women. And I found that I just loved being around women. I loved the leadership aspect of it. I loved watching women grow their business, grow personally and professionally. And when I stepped down from that position, I really missed it. And I launched my own business knowing that I'm great at networking, I'm great at connecting people. It's been a journey to figure out how I can build a business around that. But 3 years later, I finally know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
And now, so I started doing my dinner parties, which are very popular around, it was the end of 2015. So I left my father's business in 2015. And I invited some girlfriends over. It was something I always wanted to do. And we had a topic of discussion. I made the entire meal, created a menu. It was awesome, and I loved it, and everybody loved it. And I'm like, I want to keep doing this. It was so fulfilling. Yeah. I wanted more of it. So every month, I started inviting people from my network, all the amazing women in my network, sending them invitations, and it was first come, first serve. And here we are, almost 3 years later, with the dinner parties. They sell out in less than an hour.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So my biggest problem is that I don't have enough room, and people want to come and they're bummed when they can't get in. So I'm now taking that to the next level, listening to what the people, the women in my network want, and taking that to the next level where I'm actually building a platform so that these dinner parties can grow and other people can host them in their home. Yeah. Creating this sort of dinner party in a box concept and teaching other women how to be great dinner party hosts. The value is that you're bringing all these amazing women together from your network. You're creating really intimate, deep connections between people, and all of that ends up coming back to you.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I know I was so excited to be one of your guest facilitators.
Yeah.
That was my first experience at a dinner party, and it was amazing.
You were one of my favorites. It was great.
I mean, I think the thing that's so special about what you put together is it is an intimate group, right? It's not ever more than maybe 10 or 15 people.
Oh, yeah. No more. 11 is usually the max.
And that includes me. Okay. And it seemed like there's just sort of a degree or a couple of degrees. Obviously, people are connected to you, but even within our own networks, it was interesting to just sort of hear like, oh, maybe either I can really relate to you because we've been in a similar industry and we likely know some similar people, or, oh, wow, we have the same friend or colleague in common.
Yeah.
And I think also because everybody knows you, it's a really special experience. So yeah, I mean, I'm so excited. I'm excited for the next chapter. And I think one of the things that I get most excited about, as we've talked a little bit about that, is the idea that, as you mentioned, you really listened to your audience. And that's how you've informed some of the decisions about where you're going next. And that's a big piece of what I teach and consult with people on is, you know, when you're really trying to figure out your brand and the story and what's going to connect, it's starting by really thinking about your audience. So I love that. And I would love to know a little bit more about your biggest motivator. I mean, obviously, I thought your dinner party was fun. I could see how in general that's a fun concept, but I'd love to know a little bit more about that, maybe like sort of more emotionally, sort of the superpower behind it, and, you know.
Yeah, it's really comes down to what's fulfilling. I've done several different things in my business. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I was last year into the beginning of this year doing more like corporate training. I was working on the corporate side, and I woke up one day and I'm like, this is not fulfilling. I don't want to do this anymore. So I dropped all of those clients, and my dad is so funny. He's like, you are finally making money. What are you doing? You know what? I'm going to do what makes me happy. And I started looking at the business or the dinner party side of my business, and that was consistently growing. People were asking for more of it. I look forward to it every month. So the motivation really, I think, goes back to I get so much fulfillment out of watching people connect. It's even more valuable to me than money in some ways, to watch people connect that end up doing business together, that end up becoming friends. You at the dinner party you were at, you saw two people that were there, or two of the women that were there were like, we're besties. Yeah. All of a sudden, they just met a few hours before that. So it was just incredible to see those connections happen, and to see the joy that comes to women, and also the sacred, like the safe space that I've created at the dinner parties, where women tell their stories when we do introductions, not just what do you do, but how did you get to what you're doing? What led you down that path? And sometimes it's something really tragic. There was a woman who shared that she found out her husband was having an affair. She has a child that is autistic. She was dealing with a lot in her life, and that led her to starting her own business. And so it was great just that we could all sit there and listen to it and be supportive of her. Yeah. So I really feel like that's the motivator, to watch this connection happen, and how it's important to women's lives. Yeah, I agree. And I will say that was something really special I took away, was just instantly feeling like people felt like they could open up and tell their little elongated 30-second sort of speech or networking sort of, hi, here's who I am, but also sharing who they were from the beginning. And I think, the fact that you create that space, and then the fact that really motivates you is so exciting, and explains why it's such a special experience. So another thing on sort of a different topic I would be curious about is, as you've been growing your business in the last 3 years, are there any tools or software that you have found that kind of more from that business side are really helping you move forward? Oh, yes. A couple of them. And every time I tell people about this, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I learned about this. So I do a lot of networking, as you may know, and it's a big part of just what I stand for. It's something that I love doing, but it also helps me grow my business in a very authentic way, which is important to me, so that the women who get invited to my dinner parties, who are part of my network, are not just somebody that I spoke at an event and somehow they ended up on my email list. These are women I have real relationships with. We've had coffee, we've talked about the good, the bad, the ugly in our lives, and we really share it on a deep level. And then they end up coming to my dinner parties. So that's really important. And in order to do that, I really have to have my schedule structured in a way that allows that, but also allows me to get my work done. Because, you can do coffee meetings all week and then you don't get any work done, right? So I have learned that 2 tools that are really important to that whole system. One is Full Contact. Okay. It's an app. And it's also online, so it's a web-based, but also online, computer, you call it browser-based. And what happens is it's basically a CRM. So for those of you who don't know, it's a customer relationship management tool. What happens when I get introduced to people, so as I do a lot of networking, I meet somebody, they will then send an email introduction to somebody else. So I literally have probably anywhere from 3 to 10 email introductions a week. So thinking about that's just the first step, right? And then we have to schedule coffee or schedule lunch or schedule a phone call. And so there's several steps along the way. Managing all of that, managing that information, where does it go? Yeah, keeping it organized and what you learn about each person as you get to know them better too. Yes, so that's also important. I have a personal assistant, a virtual assistant, who she's set up to, every time I get one of these email introductions, or it could be that I meet somebody at an event. I was at a women's event last night and I collected several business cards. So one of the great things about this app is it has a business card scanner. And once you scan in the business card, there is actually a human being who transcribes that into your CRM.
That's great.
So now you have all the contact information in there. While I'm scanning in the business card, it also gives me the option to leave a note. So I'll put the date, I'll put where we met, anything I remember about that conversation. And you can also set up tags. So this is really important because I will tag where we met, so or who introduced us. So let's say FemCity is a group that I'm involved in here. If we met at a FemCity event, I'm going to tag FemCity. So now at the end of the year, I can go look and I can search on the tag FemCity and I can see how many contacts, how many connections I made from FemCity.
So smart.
Yeah, and then I can determine if I want to continue joining, the membership with that organization.
It's so smart. And I mean, I think that's where like your sales background and really your kind of power of networking really plays into this, because I think some of the things you're sharing right now are things that I think when you have sort of a corporate world job, and especially if you're in more of that sales or account type role, you start to develop those systems, and you don't always know that if you own a small business, right? And your expertise is in a different area. Now all of a sudden you have to sell for yourself, and you have to get out there and hustle for yourself, and you have to decide, like you were just saying in your example, what of all of these different memberships should I be a part of and should I spend money on? And so this is a really smart way to not only keep things clear in your mind about who you are contacted with, but also, like you're saying, to figure out that return on investment for some of those memberships.
Well, yeah, memberships, but also people, right?
Right.
So the people who are sending email introductions, I will actually tag their name when that person is put into my CRM. So now I can go search on those people at the end of the year, or I usually do it during Thanksgiving because that's when I like to give thanks, or periodically throughout the year, and see that, oh my gosh, they sent me 5 connections and I want to send them a card of appreciation. Say, thank you so much. You've really added a lot of value to my network, and how can I get back to you, sort of thing. I also tag them by industry. So that's really important because let's say, your tag is branding and marketing. So if I'm looking for somebody in branding and marketing, which is what I did, actually, I made a list of all the people when I got to this point, and you were on the top of my list. So now I know those are the people that I can contact, but also vice versa. Like if somebody in my network is looking for somebody in branding and marketing, I now have all those contacts tagged. I can easily find it.
That's great.
I tag based on location. So if they're out in the suburbs, they get a different tag than if they're in the city versus the North Shore. So now the other great thing about that is anyone who's in the North Shore, if I have a meeting on the North Shore, what I do is I will go and search on that tag and see who all the people are there in the North Shore area. And then I can make additional meetings. So I really add more value to the time that I'm spending up there.
That's great. So it's called Full Contact.
Full Contact.
Awesome.
Yes. And it's only like, what is it? I want to say it's $99 a year. It's
that's nothing.
So inexpensive.
Yeah.
And it's so valuable. And they're always adding new functions into it too. It's a really great tool. The second tool is Schedule Once.
Okay.
There's other tools out there. It's like a calendar-based scheduling tool. I know Calendly is similar. I like Schedule Once because it's got a lot of functionality. You can actually brand it. So when people go to your page, it's like all branded, Megan Wessels, Powerful Partners.
I
It's
love
got all
that.
my colors. Yeah, exactly. You can customize it. So I have it customized to, there's 2 different links now. There's one for a call with me, and then there's one for coffee or lunch meetings. And it's set up so that I do phone calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I do coffee meetings 1 day a week. And it's usually on either Tuesday or Thursday, or it might be a different day of the week. But yeah, so what happens is they go to that link then, and once all of those blocks are filled up for that week, then they have to go to the next week and look for the availability, and they can find something that works with their calendar. I also have predetermined locations set in there, so they select a location.
Oh, that's great.
And what that does for me is like, because we met at one of my locations, I can literally have back-to-back coffee lunch meetings at the same location. I don't have to go anywhere, People just keep coming in.
Yeah.
So I get to maximize my time, and
Yes.
I add so much value to my network at the same time.
I love that. And I also think the smart thing about that, not only for your time, but when you were talking about how you schedule out certain kind of blocks and different days. I know when all of a sudden I came out of the corporate world and I didn't have that structure of how things work and what meetings I need to be in, and all of a sudden it was on me to figure out, that was one of the first things that I really had to start to play with, which is how do I block my time and how do I pick the days that I'm going to be here or there? When am I going to be networking? Because I found that when I didn't do anything at first, I was running all over the city.
Yeah.
Not only was I exhausted, but I was
Same
really
here.
wasting some of my own time.
Same here.
So
I
love
learned
that.
the hard way.
Yeah.
It's taken me a while to get to this structured of a system, but I have to do it because I do so much networking.
Yeah.
And I found that, just like you were saying, like I was going all over the place. I was spending all this time out networking events and coffee meetings and phone calls. And I'm like, man, I felt like I didn't get any work done today.
Right.
And one of the things that I noticed, and other people might be different, but for me, it's hard for me to go from a coffee meeting, like that mindset of like connecting with someone and really learning about someone, to sitting in front of my computer and getting like that sort of work done.
Right.
So I have to schedule it on like certain days where, like I said, Tuesdays or Thursdays or whatever it may be, there's like that certain day of the week, and then the other days are strictly for work.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a great process.
And another thing is, so let's say I have a networking event on Wednesday night. So I moved that coffee meeting day to Wednesday. So now I'm just like, I'm in that mode all day long. You know, I go from coffee meeting to lunch meeting to coffee meeting to a networking event. And I'm in that mode all day long. And then I can do my follow-ups the next day.
I think that's great. And that's another really good point, is that I think learning and knowing yourself to know what are your sort of different work modes, you know, and I do think that it's true. I mean, that's a bit like that for me too. If I'm in a really creative zone one day, it is hard for me to sort of shift gears and shift back. So I think it's great to learn that about yourself.
Yeah.
And so like on the topic of sort of learning about yourself and being in tune with that, one of my favorite questions to ask people is, what is your superpower?
My superpower is definitely connecting.
Yeah.
So it was funny, somebody that I was connected to via email, actually, no, I take that back. We met on Instagram. And we had a phone call this week. Yeah, so I meet people all different ways.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we had a phone call this week. She just recently moved here from New York. She's been really struggling to find her tribe in Chicago. And she came across my profile and she's like, you definitely know a lot of people. She called me the fairy godmother of networking. I'm like,
I love it.
Okay, I think I need to have that framed.
Yes, and I would agree with that too. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's the thing that's really great about that, is you've built a business around that.
Yeah.
And then, like we were saying earlier, not only have you built a business, but you've been really introspective, and you've listened to your audience, you've reflected on what works, you've figured out where is the growth and the scalability, and now I'm so excited for you as, you know, you move into sort of the next phase. You've proved something out, but, you know, it must feel really good because it's based on something that, like you said, motivates you too.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. When you wake up and you're like, I love what I do, instead of like dreading the day. And
it's
like
such a difference.
Pulling yourself out of bed. Yes, it's such a difference. So.
And like you said before too, sometimes, you know, at least for me, I've learned in my first, like, I'm still in year 2, that there are times where the cash flow isn't there yet, to where I want it to be, and maybe even need it to be from sort of, you know, where I was before in the corporate world, for my lifestyle, because things can get tight at times. But I find that when you are spending your days doing more of what you love to do, and you can show up as your authentic self, it starts to not matter as much. I mean, you still want to be able to keep the lights on, but it can make a big difference. And
when you can let go of that worrying and it doesn't matter to you anymore, that's when it actually starts flowing in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that over and over again. I'm really working on that.
It's crazy. Like, I've had women who are like, will you coach me? And I'm like, I'm not really a coach, but okay, I'm not going to turn away.
Yeah.
And I just keep getting more things keep coming to me, and it's great. I just love it. But I mean, that goes back to what you put out is what you get back. And when you can add that value to people's lives, it makes such a difference to them, and that all ends up coming back to you.
Yeah. I love that. that's where I want to end our chat, because I just love that idea.
Great.
And I hope people take that away from our conversation today.
Me too.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.